Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I've got my earbuds in, so we're kind of going with a different sort of sound today. And it's part 2 of backbending, approaching our backbends in this sort of different way. Yes, chest and heart opening, but today a little bit more about the hips and how the hips play into our backbends. So let's go ahead and get started. I brought my mat to a wall. And we're going to begin with just a variation of Setu Bandhasana, bridge pose. Plant your feet on the wall. Move your hair aside if you have to, like I do. Take a couple deep breaths. Practice connecting with your deep core, as in that feeling of exhale to engage that Mula Bandha. Yes, so that's your pelvic floor perineum lifting up, like you're stopping the flow of urine and gas, and the abdominal wall flattening and drawing up towards your sternum. Hello, Molly. In the meantime, shoulders and chest are gently melting back, open onto the mat. Now, if you're like many of us and your back has a little niggling aches and pains at the end of the day, you find yourself doing the dishes and just your lower back is just aching. As you stay here with your feet on the wall, what I want you to try is pulling down with your feet as if you were trying to pull your heels towards your buttocks. So that's as I exhale. I begin to engage through the backs of my legs. And when my hamstrings engage, what it does is it pulls on the tops of the hamstrings. The hamstrings attach at the sit bones. So as I exhale, I'm pulling my sit bones down towards my heels because my heels aren't actually moving towards my buttocks. For many of us who tend to sit into that sway back posture, we find ourselves with a achy low back at the end of the day or after doing back bends. This can really help. So engaging through our strength to help bring our back into a more neutral position to start. And then you may be thinking, what happens when I go into Setu Bandhasana, bridge pose, is the back of my legs gets an instant cramp, right? If you are a tighter hamstring person, whether it's genetic or you tend to sit a lot or it's your posture, butt is kind of tucked under, those hamstrings are really tight, the bridging may cause cramping, right? So the tricky part about this is I do want you to engage them just at that initiation. And then as we raise our buttocks, we're going to kind of try to really focus on the push of the hips, right? So this is, you should primarily feel this back here in your backside. And then slowly come back down. So again, deep breath, wide open ribs, chest, far out belly, heart expanding. Exhale, Mula Bandha, perineum lift, abdominal flattening, lifting, pulling heels to seat, so hamstrings. Then I'm going to think of pushing my hips towards the ceiling. Notice it's not a very big bridge. I'm not trying to arch my back or lift my ribs up to the sky. It's really about my hips pushing open. So whenever we talk about hip opening, we're thinking about this angle getting longer. And that's what really involves the glutes. Slowly come back down. Hug one knee into your chest. Try the same thing with one side at a time. I'm going to move my arm out of the way so you can see. Drag down with the heel. Engage. Push. I'm hugging my knee in and pushing my bottom up. I'm going to do that one side one more time. Second side. If this angle at your hip, by the way, is too deep, it's too much on your hip flexors, or you have some sort of impingement in your hip, you can keep this angle a little bit more open, as in kind of a 90-degree hip. There was my abdominals coming a little bit late to the party. Deep breath. So first go to your core, hamstrings, back, and then the hips. I'm really pushing my big toe down and drawing my knee right over that second toe, so not wide. Slowly set it down. Take a gentle relaxation in sort of a happy medium legs up the wall here. So my legs are just lengthening through those hamstrings. And then bend your knees in. And then coming away from the wall, I'm just going to twirl myself around so you'll see me facing the other way. So bridging, too often, bridging leading to full back bend wheel. We hear this cue about not using your buttocks, not squeezing your glutes. And I really disagree with that cue. Bridging and back bending does involve your buttocks. You need to open the front of the hip in order to raise your hips up or extend them. So I do want you to feel it. Hopefully after that setup, we'll be ready to go. First place to go is, are your feet planted sit bone distance, not turned out, not too wide apart, right? They're straight forward. Pushing down, activate the core and those hamstrings. And then push down through your heels and your big toes and raise your buttocks. So that's that hip raise that we did on the wall, feet on the wall. You should be feeling some nice strong work here. Breathe. And then slowly set it down. Remember that bridging does involve your back. Your back muscles have to contract to lift and extend your body up off of the mat. You're bringing your ribs forward of your head, so you are extending your back. But if you feel it too painfully in your back, then you stick pretty low. Remember the bridge facing the other way. And just try to feel the muscles that are involved, other muscles than just your back, other muscles than just those hamstrings that want to cramp. So if we try to take our bridge a step further, I want you to plant your elbows into robot arms. We start to feel the backs of the shoulders and the blades coming to the mat. My neck has its little neutral curvature already. I'm not going to exaggerate. I'm just going to start with that. And then same initiation through the core, the hamstrings, and the glutes to lift my hips. From here, if I want to build my bridging, I need to lift both my hips and my heart. So I'm going to press my elbows back and move my shoulder blades to the mat or even a little bit to each other. But I also press down into the feet and raise my hips. So it's not pushing your ribs up at the expense of your back. It's taking your whole self higher. One more breath. I'm going to try to initiate a little more arching through my back and my hips. Opening. Slowly melt it back down. I like to rock gently into windshield wipers out of that. And then rock and roll. Come on up over your shins, onto your hands and knees. Cat and cow. Move the tailbone, the sit bones away from one another and away from your face behind you. And up. Exhale, move them under. Here's that same feeling in my hamstrings, my glutes, my hips. Moving my back. Working with my back. Move into a happy medium here. And then wiggle yourself back to the wall. A second chance to find an awareness of our hip extensor muscles, right? Which once we come into back bends such as upward facing dog, your bow pose, your camel, these bigger back bends, our hips really do need to be open in the front and not bent, right? When our hip is flexed, we're not getting that fullest extension through the whole body. So find the wall with your heel. Don't allow your foot or your hip to be turned. And then lift as you exhale, belly up into your body. Again, think of drawing your tailbone toward your heels, your sit bone toward your heels, and then push your heel into the wall. Isometric hold here, one more breath. You can slightly soften the knee and then straighten it again. Gently touching it back down. Second side, same as the first, reach for the wall. Lifting your belly up into your body. Again, I always talk about with hip flexor stretching, it's not about tucking your tailbone under, right? But it's just this engagement through the back of the legs that allows us to engage fully through that whole chain. Hamstrings, glutes, abdominals, spine. A little bend, little push. Come gently back to child's pose and rest. Come up with one foot forward, Anjaneyasana, your low lunge. Open up the front angle of the hip. So this is, I'm going to switch sides so you can see the front angle of the hip is right here. You don't want it to be bent. So that's the reason to not always stretch in a forward bending position, reaching for the floor. So if you can, lift your body up. Make this hip come open. Flatten it, in other words. Feel the same muscles. Down the back of the leg, right in the buttocks. Abdominals. So it's not that you can't take that stretch a little bit lower. So we're going to move into lizard lunge. I widen my front foot. I step it further forward so that even though I'm moving my torso and my pelvis further forward, I'm not leaving my butt up and bending at my waist or at my shoulders to come down. My hips are open. So the front angle of the pelvis is open. It's lengthening. Breathe. I'm on blocks. I find it feels a little bit more supportive for my shoulders, my wrists. You're welcome to come down to the blocks or come down to the floor beyond that. Listen to those long, deep breaths. Go ahead and take a moment to come back up, planting your hands, planting your feet, downward facing dog. This is another great place to search for a wall. Initiating not by straightening your knees and simply kind of pushing your knees back, but by feeling those muscles at the back of the legs. So I do think about a little bit of sit bones to heels. I think about the muscles in my legs, my knees begin to stretch. My heels press against the wall. Other side. Whoop, falling over. You're going to step the other foot forward. Lengthen up through the crown of the head. Just get nice and tall through the hip. Come on down. From Anjane into lizard lunge. Bringing yourself back up. Freestanding downward dog, just in the middle of your mat. Forward to plank pose. Same thing here to find that pelvic neutral. I'm dragging my sit bones down toward my heels a little bit. I'm engaging my buttocks. I'm engaging my core. Slowly come on down. Lift your heart, cobra. Here's that moment. Are your shoulder blades moving back? Is your pelvis relaxed? Lower back relaxed? A little bit of work, but not a lot. So maybe relaxed is the wrong word. We're going to press up to find our knees. It's time to move into camel. Camel, I feel similarly to bridge pose. For me, I feel like too much of the time we tend to kind of sway in our lower back and our hips kind of flex, and then we kind of lean into that lower back and our neck. Those two areas that maybe kind of have a tendency to like compensate, right, for the tightness in the middle of our back, right where those shoulder blades are. So I'm going to show a very, very very small version of camel. So come with me if you're looking at being kind to your lower back. If you want to go further, just keep in mind the sit bones drawing down, the abdominals and the glutes working together. Instead of shifting your pelvis forward, you're just going to lift up and then go back. So you can tuck your toes under. You can have blocks there if you like. Start with your hands at your hips. Just like I did in Setu Bandhasana, I'm thinking about dragging my sit bones down. This is my hamstrings. And then I think about lifting my belly up. I feel my glutes. Shoulder blades start to move back. That little pulling together. And then little more. And you can see my chest, my sternum starts to point up. Pause and breathe. Not necessarily still. Come back up to neutral by lifting the back of the neck along, the tops of the ears. Have a meal or a seat and just breathe. Good. We're going to come all the way down to our tummies. Downward dog. Plank pose. Hips engaged, long and open. Neck and head are lifted and lower down. Same as we did at the wall. Tuck the toes of one foot under and try to initiate reaching through that leg, reaching through the strength of your hip muscles to reach the legs straight. My toes are still on the ground and I'm really starting to feel not only my leg, but also my hip. And then try to lift. Without the hips turning, either way. Without the knee bending. Slowly set it down and relax. Second side, toes tuck under. Deep breath. Mula Bandha. Sit bone to heel. Heel begins to reach back as the knee lifts up. Same feeling in my buttocks. Leg lifts. And slowly lower it down and relax. So locust is a relatively small back bend. We're going to take the arms down. They're down in a low V, near your body but not squeezing. Shoulders coming back, lift your heart, chest lifts. And imagine doing that same motion with both sides. So you could do it, tuck your toes, reach your heels back. Initiating by feeling the sit bones, hamstrings, then lifting the heels through your glutes. This is not all about bending your back, but about opening the hips to lift your limbs, opening your chest to lift your arms and shoulders. Slowly come on down and relax. So if grabbing your feet in bow pulling posture seems impossible, there's always pant legs, you could always do this, repeat it twice, do it once holding one foot and once holding the other foot. We're going to think about this the same way. Both knees bend if you can, catch a hold of the tops of the feet. I'm flexing my feet so that I feel engagement through my legs as I start to initiate sit bones down the back of my legs. Mula Bandha, lifting up. Then think about your bridge pose. Push with your feet and lift your chest at the same time. Now, if your low back is really an issue, keep your knees down, press them down, and just lift your chest up. If you want more of that hip and thigh opening, push feet into hands, raising the knees up. So at the same time, you're working with those hip muscles. And then slowly set yourself down. Bend your knees and wiggle waggle the shins from side to side. And press on that. So if the other day you were with me, we rolled up a towel or blanket or lay perpendicular, so laying at the bra line. Today we're going to make it a little bit higher. So I've got blocks. I usually, personally, I use this lowest setting of the block, so the smallest lump that you can. But I do one, I do one lengthwise, and then I do one horizontal or perpendicular, and that goes under your head. This one's in my mid-back. So I'm going to bring myself back and nestle it as best I can. And then move the other one around to catch your head. If you have shifted that bottom block to make a deeper back bend, more of an arch in your spine, then you may need to shift and readjust the one that holds your head as well. So just kind of pay attention to how it feels in your neck. You don't want your neck to really be caught in the lurch. That chin is not too high. And then relax into it. So those blocks, I know they can have hard edges, but do the best you can to breathe. And then feel as you exhale a sense of softening. So I feel my scapula kind of rolling around that block, which opens my chest. Take rest right here. Let your awareness resurface. You may find yourself in a big back bend here. Try to bend your knees first to initiate coming off the blocks, roll off to one side, and just go easy with your back. Take a moment to readjust, to feel the difference, and then press with your hands to come all the way back up. You may sit upright again, reach up, inhale, pull down to your heart, exhale. May we be happy, may we be healthy, may we live with more peace and live with more ease in our body, mind, and heart. Namaste. Thanks for being here. Have a great day.